according to the Credit Suisse Wealth Global Report, only 1% or 56 million people are millionaires.
Interesting.
Is it possible for anyone to become a millionaire? And if so, what would they need to have the first three things in mind in order to work towards becoming that?
Yes. So I think we should just assume that we can.
What if all the excuses in the world, though, of like, my parents won't let me do this, where I grew up, or this or that, I don't have the education, you still think it's possible?
Yes, and you can find examples of millionaires in every circumstance. I myself grew up low income. Like, my parents were drug addicts and alcoholics at different points in their lives. Like, there was on paper, I was not a potential success story, right? And I could let that stop me, or I could just say, that's just part of my story. It doesn't mean anything. In fact, I think it's actually propelled me. I think sometimes when you are at a disadvantage, you are in a better position. And if you think about people who are systemically and historically marginalized, right? Like, there's not as many Black people, for example, who are teaching on a certain subject or who are experts in a certain field, right? You have an opportunity and a perspective to serve a segment of the market that's probably underserved right now if you are a marginalized person, you know? So I think that there is a wealth of opportunity, and we have tools now. Like, it's a miracle that we have the internet, right? That's how I was able to do it. So I think it is within reach, and I think we have to believe it. I mean, that's the first thing, is you have to believe it's possible. And I think the way that you get to start believing that is possible is surround yourself with other people who also believe, right? Like, be in an environment like listening to a podcast like this, or reading books, or joining communities where you could be surrounded with people who believe. Because there's any number of naysayers in the world who will tell you it's not practical, it's not possible. So you have to surround yourself with people who believe and who are doing it, who are working towards it. I think that's the first thing.
Okay.
I think the second thing is we have to really get clear on the way that we add value. I think we are so like talented, and we think that we're not. Forget about what the world says. Forget about what your last boss said about you. Forget about what degrees you do or don't have, right? Like, really think about your natural talents. Like, every single one of us is born with natural talents and skill sets and a perspective that other people don't have. And the problem is we undervalue it. We think everybody can do what we do. Everybody can't do what I do, right? Like, everybody can't rock this hair. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so we have to get in touch with what are our talents. And the way that we do that is look back at, like, when you were a kid, right? Like, what were the things that people came to you for, or you were just naturally did? Like, I used to get in trouble all the time for talking too much. And now I get paid to talk.
Yes.
You know? So I think that we can look back and see, and it doesn't even have to be like, sometimes people think, oh, you got to be a big personality. No, you don't. Like, there are people that I know who make millions just being someone who thinks like an engineer, who knows how to systematize things and create process. And they use that as a way to like invent strategies or processes that make them millions, right? So we all have talent. So we have to tap into that and really think about, what is the value that I have to bring? I think personality tests can help with that, just to start to give you an inkling towards, you know, become a student of yourself. Who am I, right? What do I have to bring to the world? What is my perspective? How does my growing up with a parent who struggled with alcoholism at one point in their lives, how's that benefit me and make me relate to more people and make, you know, me more able to become a millionaire rather than less? So I think recognizing our value is also a big piece of it. So we had mindset, we have value. I talked a little bit about environment. And then, you know what, like, I think for the last one, I'm gonna just say charge accordingly. Like, just start asking for more money, right? Like, just be audacious with your requests. Like, just ask. So I think, you know, it's one of the simplest things we can do is like, oh, you want to pick my brain? Let me charge for that.
Right.
Or, you know, put an offer out, right? Offer to tutor your neighbors, or offer to whatever that skill is that you feel that you have. Try to sell it and see what happens. See if anybody wants to buy it.
Absolutely.
You know?
And the more valuable you become, and the more people want your talent and your skills, you can start to charge more accordingly. Maybe when you start out, you need to charge in a certain way, but as you grow, you can really start to charge premium levels.
Yes. And honestly, here's the thing. I think we could charge premium on day one.
Yeah.
I just think that we're too afraid to do it. As long as you could back it up.
You gotta get results.
Yes, exactly. If you can get results, then why do you have to, you don't have to charge lower because everybody else does. I think we do that because we're scared. So we're like, oh, you know, this very valuable thing that I have to give, I'm going to give it for $100 instead of $1,000 because $100 scares me less. And it's like, okay, fine, put it out for $100 and then see the results that you get for people. They get mad about it and then raise the price.
Exactly.
Which is what I did.
Yeah. You mean you charged less, they got incredible results, and you're like, oh, I should have charged 10 times
myself.
more.
Yes.
I think it's okay when you're first starting out, the first 6 months of a venture or something. It's like, I've done things for free for friends to see.
Oh, totally.
Can I actually get the results? Let me try. I got it for myself. Can I do it for one person?
Yes.
Oh, I did. Okay, let me charge the next person.
Yes.
Man, they made a lot of money from my help. Let me charge more for the next time, and then keep going up.
Yes.
I think that's the best way to do it. What if someone's listening and or watching, and they're in their mid to late 20s, and they haven't really figured out what they want to do with their career or their business aspect of their life yet?
Yes.
What would you suggest in terms of the fastest path to making millions? The fastest path to being a millionaire based on their skills. How can they assess their skills? What would that industry be? What would that lane be? Is that a career? Is that investing in something? Is that earning as a solo entrepreneur to an entrepreneur? What lane should they take or think of?
Yes.
What are kind of these 3 different lanes you would suggest?
So I don't believe that we should choose our path based on like what industry is hot right now. I think what's going to make you the most money the fastest is the thing that you're willing to consistently do. And that's usually connected to something that we actually care about and are interested enough in.
Right.
So I think sometimes we're like, oh, this is hot, or this is a hot idea, we should jump on that. And it's like, you could. And I'm not saying that won't work. But I think the way that I've been most consistent is if I'm doing the kind of work that I enjoy, that I believe in, where I feel like I'm making a difference, and where I'm having fun. Yeah. If it's a drag, I'm gonna stop showing up.
It's gonna be tiring after a year, 2 years. You're like, it's exhausting.
Right. So finding that thing that you're willing to do for 10 years, and sometimes you don't know, right? Like when I graduated from law school, I started a law practice because I knew I didn't want any of these other jobs that I was being offered at these firms or at nonprofits. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go do my own thing. And I started my own practice. And law wasn't it for me. That wasn't my thing. But through doing that, I discovered that I really love running a business and I'm actually good at it.
Right.
And so that I would have never gotten to that. So I think there's advice by Denzel Washington. They asked him, like, what would you advise young actors? And he says, act. Yeah. Right. Just get out there and do it. And so I think that's what you have to do, is just pick something and do. And through that, you're going to learn what you do like, what you don't like, what you're drawn to. You're also going to get a perspective that's going to show you opportunity. Like I figured out Small Business Bodyguard is a digital product that I created while I was running my law practice, right, in 2013. But when I was a law clerk in 2009 and working in the courts every day, I identified that like there's people who, can get legal aid and get a free attorney. And then there are people who can afford attorneys. And there's a whole lot of people in between that. Yes. Where they don't qualify for legal aid, but they also can't afford $350 an hour for an attorney, right? And so I was like, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if there was some DIY option? Like they could do it themselves if they just had a little bit of guidance. Yes. And so like that idea was planted then, right? And then years later,
you executed on it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I think sometimes we just have to get out there, get into something, right? Start doing something and just getting information from that and seeing and go where you're drawn. I think our instincts are so powerful. We collect too much information, too many advisors, too much content, right? So I think sometimes we just have to follow our instincts. Where do we feel led? Do it and see what happens. Yeah. It doesn't have to be permanent. Right. Just gather some information from it and see what's next.